All right, welcome to MissouriNet.com. I'm kind of laughing here, Matt, because here's the problem with this. Like with radio, you can go and record this stuff, and you can keep it off in a file, and nobody knows it's going on.
hmm
This I'm going to post on our website on Friday, but people could be watching this live right now. They could go back, it's Wednesday now. They could go back on, Thursday or even early Friday morning and watch this. And so I'm going to try to talk like this is, like right before the day, Friday of the game. But I mean, I even took I had my collared shirt. I just did another interview with Daniel Lewis from RockyTopInsider.com, getting Tennessee's perspective. So I put this on to kind of cover it up like it's not the same day. Took my glasses. I go through all this stuff. And it's like, I figure it out. This isn't a big trick. It's Google Hangout. So
This is not rocket science. Certainly, if anybody's looking at me and thinking I am a rocket scientist, they are sorely mistaken. I once in a while know something about college football, and that might be it. That's all I know for sure right now.
well, the only reason why we're doing this Wednesday and then I'm posting Friday instead of just doing it Friday is because you're going on another wedding now, huh?
Yeah, this is wedding number 2. This is my best friend, the best man of the wedding. It's outside of Philadelphia. It's actually out in far eastern, kind of rural Pennsylvania. It's basically next to Trenton, New Jersey. Newton, Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
So I gotta fly into Philly and do that whole thing and get a cheesesteak or something and go to the art museum or whatever the hell it is.
Yeah.
And then, say I did Philly.
Are you going to be back in time for the 11 a.m. kickoff Saturday, Mizzou-Georgia?
No, wedding Friday. So I was rooting for an 8 p.m. kickoff because then I would have actually made it back for a lot of the game. But no, I get to. It's really the worst possible time because I'm going to be at an airport bar watching this game.
Here's the thing about the Missouri Tigers, and this is not so much the Missouri Tigers, but the media that covers the SEC. Everybody wanted to poo-poo on the Tigers. And here we are, and I'm the first one to say this. There is a lot of football for the Missouri Tigers left to play. They still have 7 games to play in their conference. But after just one game, now you have a vast majority, I would say a vast majority of those people that poo-pooed on the Tigers now saying that they're in the driver's seat for the SEC East. It's mind-boggling how much minds and opinions change over a couple weeks of football.
Well, and here's the crazy thing, Bill. I never knew that the official name of the team was Missouri, which lost to Indiana at home. I never knew that was the name of the Missouri Tiger football team until recent weeks because all you see is, the SEC East is a mess. Why? Well, because Missouri lost to Indiana at home. I've been saying this for 2 or 3 weeks now. That game was an aberration, and I think you actually got it right. I don't like to say things that you can't really quantify and saying they didn't show up. They didn't show up for that game. And a lot of things had to go wrong for them to lose that game by one possession. By one possession. It's not like they got blown out. They played poorly. They were missing a guy the day of the game. A lot of bad things happened. Can we please stop saying that Missouri is some sort of baloney team just because of the fact they had a bad game against Indiana? Look at all the top teams out there that lost this week. Oregon, people are saying, maybe Oregon just had a bad game against Arizona, who beat them at home. But then there are also a lot of other people saying, well, their offensive line has been like this all season long. Well, which is it? Are they the number 2 team in the country, or is their offensive line no good? You know what I mean? All these teams are ranked highly. I try to rank the teams based on where I think they're going to end up. Like I look at a team like Baylor and say, yeah, Baylor's the only team that's consistently blown people out. They should maybe be in the top 4 right now. But at the same time, has Baylor played anybody at all? At all. And you could have said that about Missouri early on, but at least Indiana's a Power 5 team. At least UCF went to a bowl last season. I still think the UCF win was the most impressive win in terms of what Missouri did. And then the Carolina win was the most impressive of what Missouri had to go through to get there. But no, we can't give any credit to these wins that are on the road against teams that, lose to Kentucky because they lose to Kentucky. I mean, I don't know. I'm just frustrated with the state of affairs when it comes to talking about the SEC East in general because people think that it's a leap and bound away from the SEC West. And I'm sorry. The top 2 teams are Missouri and Georgia in the East, and they are not that far off from the SEC West. I think they'd slotted well against all teams not named Alabama and Auburn, and that's it.
Well, you know what, and I would agree with you, too, on that. I would agree with you on that point. The one thing that, you talk about Baylor and strength of schedules, and, I kind of look at that stuff. I think by the time the whole season shakes out, listen, if take for example, if Baylor is 12-0, then you know what? Baylor deserves a playoff spot. I don't want to hear strength of
Yes.
schedules. And any football team that can do that, if you can go 12-0 or you can go 11-1, you've got to be in consideration. And I don't, I don't buy. And the quip that I kind of made after South Carolina lost this past week was, okay, here's what's going to happen to Mizzou. People are going to come back and say, well, now that win against South Carolina isn't all that impressive now because, hey, listen, any win in the SEC, especially on the road, is big. It's huge. And they had a lot of things stacked against them. Matty Mock had no receivers to throw to. A stubborn offensive play caller who continued to throw on first down and throw deep, in my opinion, deep routes or at least, mid-range routes. So many things stacked against that team. They somehow managed to pull out a win. Now they've got a week to rest up. They've got a week to get healthy. Darius White, Jimmy Hunt should be back in there. This team should be at full 100% ready to go against Georgia, and I think they're going to need it because I agree with you. I think Georgia's the next best team in this division.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong. Todd Gurley should win the Heisman Trophy if they have the award in New York right now. He should. He's averaging 8 yards per carry. I get it. But what did Steve Spurrier say? I don't know. You want me to say Wednesday or do you want me to say today? Because we're recording on Wednesday and going on Friday. You let everybody in on the secret. Steve Spurrier said that Missouri was the best tackling team they've played in a long time. And I can't tell you how many people, Bill, how many people on my own radio program, The Big Show, 4 to 6 weekdays, KTGR, Columbia, Missouri. I can't tell you how many, my own producer, I love Brandon Kiley, but he says Missouri's not a good tackling team. And I'm like, well, Steve Spurrier said that in week 5 it was one of the best tackling teams he's faced in a long time. So which is it? Yes, I judge this Missouri team a lot based on potential this season and a lot based on what they can do. It's why I didn't freak out after South Dakota State. They didn't look so good. It's why I didn't freak out after they didn't look all in sorts against Toledo. I saw the potential for this team. I think we saw the best offensive game against UCF that they've had. And, of course, against Carolina, Indiana, throw it out the window. Carolina was not a good offensive performance. Remember, Matty Mock's a sophomore, and in the Carolina game, he looked like a sophomore playing at Williams-Brice Stadium for the first time. He had a bad game, and they still won by a point. I prefer to look on the positive side of that.
Yeah, but here's the thing about Missouri's defense. They're a good tackling team. The problem was they weren't getting the people to tackle them. They were missing their gaps. They weren't in their assignments, and there were big holes. Teams aren't hitting them and bouncing off and breaking 3, 4, 5 tackles. I mean, they're getting hit and stopped right away. Listen, that Brandon kid, we got to straighten that kid out. We got to straighten him. He's only a student.
Well,
we need to straighten him out and the rest of the other people that don't think they're a good tackling team. They're starting to play smarter on defense, too.
Well, I think that is true. And, just looking at the run defense, people think that Todd Gurley's going to run for 300 yards on Missouri. There are people out there who believe this. And I say to you people, I'm not even so sure that Todd Gurley's going to run himself. Now, maybe Georgia will rush for 200 in the game. I think that's to be expected between Gurley and Nick Chubb. But Gurley himself, I've got him for 125 or fewer, which would be a big accomplishment for any sort of team and would get Missouri a lot of credit on defense. Because here's the thing, like you said, there were some things early in the season that needed to be worked out. People need to know their roles a little bit better. And I talked with David Morrison of the Columbia Daily Tribune this week, and he breaks it down formation by formation. Missouri, in its 4-3 defense, 4 down linemen and 3 linebackers, has been better against the run in that set than pretty much any other defensive formation they've been able to use all year under Dave Steckel. And this is the type of team where they can use it. They used it a lot last week against South Carolina, and they'll be able to use it against Georgia because generally they only run a couple of wideouts out there, and they run kind of pro-set formations, which allows you to have more guys in the box near the line of scrimmage and near the ball. If Missouri can flow to the ball, if they don't have offensive linemen blocking them, which was a problem early in the season. I noticed that in the Toledo game, by the way, offensive linemen getting on linebackers, which led to problems, more so than tackling, more so than anything else. If they're able to flow to the ball in this game, they should be able to limit Todd Gurley. Yes, I know nobody's done that this season, and maybe people will be surprised. I will raise my hand and say I'm not going to be one that's going to be surprised because I think this Missouri defense has made it tougher stuff. I really do. I do. They stop people at or behind the line of scrimmage. They do it fifth best in the SEC. Do that against Gurley. You set up the other team at a 3rd and long. Hudson Mason can't beat you down the field. I'm sorry. He's not proven that to me yet.
Absolutely. And here's the other thing, too, about Missouri. I mean, I always liked their defensive line coming into the season. But the fact that when they took on South Carolina, that was a very good offensive line, at least coming into that game. They had allowed just 5 sacks in 4 games. And how many times did Mizzou get to Dylan Thompson? How many times were they putting pressure on him? This is another very good offensive line. They've got a good fullback. So this will be a good test for the Mizzou front line. But I don't know if Georgia is going to see a defensive line as talented as this all year. I think I think people are starting to realize what you and I have kind of seen about this Missouri defensive line from the very beginning, that they're talented and maybe even better than they were last year. So
I think they are better than last year, by the way, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so, I look at the schedule, and we thought South Carolina, Georgia, and Florida, those were the big 3 games. You get past that, and things are rolling along. But you know what? I don't know. You're going to get Vanderbilt. Kentucky here at home. I like it that it's at home, but we saw what they did against Florida. I mean, they're a team that can certainly play well. Then road games at Texas A&M and Tennessee, and then you got Arkansas. I mean, before you jump on that bandwagon and say, listen, they can win the SEC East. There's a couple of trap games in there too that still concern me. But I think Mizzou can take this weekend against Georgia.
Yeah, and there are concerns.
The point I'm trying to get to then is that this is then a huge advantage for them, that if they get tripped up with a trap game, they still have some somewhat of a safety net behind them.
Yeah, I agree. And listen, it's not that you can't have concerns coming into a game like this. I've had a lot of people listen to what I've had to say about this Missouri team, and granted, I picked them 11-1 before the season, and I'm staying on that prediction, at least for right now, because I haven't seen anything outside of that Indiana game to show to me that there's an actual trend going on with some of the bad things that people are seeing, okay? So that's where I'm coming from. But I take a look and say, it's all still there in front of them. This Georgia team, if you're able to just limit their running game, they don't pass exceptionally well without a great quarterback. And like you said about the defensive line, they're top 10 in the country. And people are going to start realizing that they had to do answering the bell time and again when the offense last week was just as bad as any Missouri offense we've seen, maybe in the Gary Pinkel era with the players, with the caliber of players he had. I mean, it was 3 plays and out, 4 plays and out, 5 plays and out, and the defense continued to answer the bell. They continue to answer the bell. I think that was a huge character builder for this Missouri defense. It's the type of game that will show up in a game against Georgia. I think Missouri will win it. I don't think it'll be going away. It won't be without their struggles. They will. And I will go a step further than you, Bill. I know that there are trap games in there, and the game against Indiana proved that if these guys don't take a game as seriously, they can lose, and maybe even they're going to lose. If they don't take Kentucky seriously at home, they will lose to Kentucky. If they don't take Tennessee seriously on the road at Neyland Stadium, I've been saying for 2 months that Tennessee game could be a trap game, and people didn't believe me, and now people see why, because Tennessee has got some pretty salty stuff, and they nearly knocked off Georgia at Georgia a couple of weeks ago. But if they stay in their business and they stay focused, this Missouri team can play with any team in the nation when it gets its full A game together. And I don't think we've seen that full A game yet. I think we're going to see as close to that full A game as we possibly can in this Georgia game, because everybody knows what's on the line. If they win this, they have basically a 3-game lead because they have the tiebreaker over Georgia. South Carolina is out of it. Tennessee has a couple of losses, and another one is coming up to Alabama later in the year. Kentucky, they got to play Mississippi State. They got to play LSU. I don't know if Kentucky, they can maybe get LSU. I think Mississippi State is tougher than that, and I don't think their defense is really that great because they let Florida score more than 30 points on them. Florida, the team that couldn't barely do anything against Tennessee and is all kinds of a mess right now. And then other than that, I don't really worry about Florida because they are a mess. And I've been saying it for a couple of years. As long as Will Muschamp is the coach of Florida, it looks like he might not be for very long. I think that the Gators are going to struggle because I don't think he's a great head coach. I think he's an awesome defensive coordinator and not the best head coach, and we're seeing that right now in Gainesville. If the Tigers win this game, they win the East. I will put my neck out and say it. If they win this game against Georgia, they will be able to take care of business down the stretch.
All right. Well, we'll see what happens with that. All right. Hey, let's talk baseball just real quick.
All right.
Royals and Cardinals. Do we see an I-70 series?
Yes.
Hey, But before you answer, I want to just have it noted that when I was on your show, I think it was in early August, I predicted that the Royals would make the playoffs. You probably agreed with me, but I predicted they'd make the playoffs. I said, if they get in, pitching and defense is going to carry that team a long way. So I want that noted.
Yep.
You can have me on your show more often. I do know what I'm talking about when it comes to baseball.
It is noted in the record, and it is noted in the record, and for one, I say the exact same thing. I thought that as long as they could get through, I said in April, I think they're going to sneak into the wild card this year. They're going to find a way, and it was ups and downs and topsy-turvy. And at times it looked like it was maybe very bleak, and it looked like maybe they were going to be toast, but I never said they were completely toast. I always said I thought this team would find a way back. They're extremely resilient. They know what they are, too, which is really a key in the postseason. Like the Dodgers, when they lost to the Cardinals, they obviously didn't know what they are, because if they did, Ned Colletti would have gone out at the trade deadline and gotten help for that bullpen. They did not want to use that bullpen in the postseason, and the Cardinals feasted on it, and they feasted on tired Clayton Kershaw at the ends of games. So you look at that and say that was a team that didn't know exactly what it was heading into the postseason. The Detroit Tigers had the same fate against the Baltimore Orioles. They had a bad bullpen. They didn't know exactly what they were. They didn't do enough to fix it, and then they're out. I think the Royals know what they are. They don't score many runs, which is good in the postseason, because when it chills down in October, you don't score a lot of runs to begin with.
Right.
They have the best defense in all of baseball. In all of baseball, statistically and by the eye test, they win as the best defense in baseball, and they have the best bullpen consistently throughout the regular season in all of baseball. And the Cardinals, maybe you can't quantify it as much, but the fact that they're going to 4 straight National League Championship Series, 4 in a row, I'm not even sure Cardinal fans have a full grasp of how many teams out there are looking at their organization right now and saying, I wish I could be that someday.
Yeah.
And it's not jealousy, it is admiration for the Cardinals. And maybe someday the Cardinals will not be as good, and they'll look back and they'll say, we did that 4 years in a row? That's really difficult. And John Mozeliak has the formula. He knows where to put guys in places. His move for John Lackey, I panned it at the time. I thought it wasn't enough to get into the postseason. I was 100% wrong about that. John Mozeliak made me a believer, because John Lackey was in that Game 3 and absolutely pitched the studs off his cleats. He was so good. And these guys are just winners. They find ways to do it. They've done it with home runs in the postseason when they haven't done it all year. I know the Giants have been good, but the Cardinals have that flair for the dramatic, and they find a way to come through. I like the Cardinals against the Giants, and I like the Royals against the Orioles, because they're better built for October. It helps to have an offense in October, but if you don't have an offense, you better know the way to pull them out, and the Royals are just playing solid fundamental baseball and letting other teams make mistakes, and they've pounced on every mistake so far. I think they'll do it. I think we have 1985 all over again, Bill. At this stage, I really do.
I think we have the 4 best teams in baseball in there. And I know you think, what, the Royals? But you talked about it. The Angels, first of all, were built strictly for hitting. And I don't know why organizations continue to do that when you know the history of postseason baseball. I don't know why they continue to try to build these monster lineups and not pay much attention to pitching. But anyway, here's what I like about the Royals. They've got people that have come up through their system who have won. You talk about postseason success. The AAA team, the Omaha Storm Chasers and the Omaha Royals before that, went to the postseason 4 straight years. This organization, these young players, know how to win. They know how to get there. They're not starstruck by it. And they're playing within themselves. They know what they can do. Mike Jersoley, their third base coach, he was the manager for 3 of those playoff runs. So there's some winning in that organization. This is not a flash in the pan for some of these players. As far as the Cardinals, listen, I can't quantify all this stuff. And there was something about the I think it was the Mizzou game when we tweeted something about psychological stuff and things of that nature. And Brandon, your producer, thought we were nuts. But listen, there is, especially in baseball, there is a psychological aspect to it. And this is why the Cardinals are so good. There's a portion of this. They're talented, yes. But when you go up against the Cardinals or you go up against the Yankees, as that opposing team, you know you're going up against the best. And the Cardinals, from their standpoint, believe that, hey, we're not out of any single game. And the team that they're playing knows that, hey, we have to be near perfect if we want to beat these guys. And as soon as you get into a situation where the Cardinals string a couple of hits, even in a close game, even in a blowout like we saw in Game 1, That's in the back of their mind. That's in the back of Clayton Kershaw's mind. That's in the back of that defense mind. You know what? Here come the Cardinals. Here they come again. Are we going to be able to hold them off? I really think that there's a psychological aspect to all of this. And the Cardinals just believe in themselves, and there's only one team, really, that's been able to that have been able to really kind of beat that down. The Boston Red Sox last year and the San Francisco Giants. And that's it. It's going to be a very tough series, I think, against San Francisco. You talk about the Cardinals who know what they are and what they can do, and I think the Giants are the same way. That series really concerns me. For some reason, I don't know, the Giants just I don't think they're intimidated by the Cardinals. I think the Dodgers are intimidated by the Cardinals.
Yeah, and the Giants have a great fan base, so they understand what it's like playing in these big games. They have a beautiful ballpark. They have everything going for them there, and Brian Sabian is a savvy GM, just like John Mozeliak is.
Yeah, this will be a great matchup. I mean, because I think both managers know how to manage. I think Mattingly was managed right out of his jock. I'm surprised he even has a job today, to be honest with you.
Yeah, well, when they throw all that money at it, he'd be the cheapest option to get rid of and put something new in there, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, you know what? Listen, the 4 best teams are left, and maybe we'll see the Royals and Cardinals. Boy, wouldn't that be great?
I think my show would melt down, which would be really kind of fun for me, but, terrible probably for everybody out there listening saying, who are these crazy people? We would, if it gets to that point, Bill, we're going to talk about baseball every single day. Mizzou football should never take a back seat in Columbia, Missouri. If there's an I-70 series, we're talking about Mizzou football at the end of the show. We're not even worrying about the NFL. It's all baseball if that happens.
That's right. And you better have me on every single day. You follow my tweets. You know what I'm talking about. I know what I'm talking about. Actually, you know what? I got to tell you this real quick story. You probably saw this on my Facebook page. I even tweeted it yesterday. My wife was telling me after Peralta's single line drive off of Ramirez's glove, first and second, she says, they got to get Kershaw out. And I said, no. I said, you don't take him out. I said, listen. I said, he's your number one guy. You got to go with him. If he takes him out and they lose, you got to stay with your guy. You got to stay with the guy who's the Cy Young winner. And I said, even if he gives up a base hit, they score 1 run, it's 2-1, then you take him out. She says, what if they homer? There it went. I mean, she didn't even get the words out of her mouth, and the ball was flying over the right field wall. And I felt like I was like this big. I said, you know what, you should go work for me.
Yeah. Maybe I should book your wife next time instead.
Yeah, book her instead. Yeah, absolutely.
Here's the funny thing. With Matt Carpenter, when he hit his big 2-run home run in L.A., I was saying, the one that they lost there, the second game in L.A., I was saying to people, I said, well, here's a guy who you could have, sacrifice bunt and maybe bunt for a base hit, but I don't think you want to take the bat out of your hands as click, and then there it went. Yeah. As soon as I said, but he's so hot, you don't want to take the bat out of his, gone. Matt Carpenter's on another world right now. He's so hot. You can't even properly describe it.
Yeah, nope, I know. They just, like I told you, they get that confidence, and somebody gets on a roll, and, it doesn't even have to be, one player. I mean, you go back to, 11 when, David Freese was hot. There was, Lance Berkman was down to his final strike and kept that series alive. Now you look at this, and Carpenter has carried this team. Well, now Adams, you're down 2-0, and then it's Adams who steps up. It's just, it's amazing. And I can't put my finger on it. There's an aura. And the science behind it, I don't know, but it's there. It's there, and it's certainly a part of that organization, and it's fun to watch.
Yeah, it exists, and I don't like saying aura and stuff like that either. I like to try to prove it, but you can't describe it. They do it every year by the skin of their teeth, and then they get in, and then they're great. Yep.
So we'll see what happens. All right. Well, that was a very long and lengthy hangout, but some good stuff though. It's a busy time of year.
Absolutely.
Enjoy your wedding in Philadelphia, city of brotherly love, and we'll see you next week.
I'll dress in a Santa costume and get booed as I get off the plane.
Yeah, they're rough there. I bet even the flight attendants are rough in Philly. All right.
I don't want to know. I don't want to know.
All right. That'll wrap it up for this week, and we'll get ready for Mizzou and Georgia, and then we'll look ahead with Matt next Friday when we take on Florida. Have a good one. Thanks for watching us here at MissouriNet.com.